It's Thursday, and I had every intention of getting to the gym, but now the wind has picked up. It's brutal. I'm leaving to go south on Monday. Thank you. Everywhere we turn lately, it's Greta. Of course, yesterday she became the person of the year. And I was surprised to dig into what other people had been person of the year. And the list is quite amazing. Especially the addition of, Adolf Hitler in 1938 after he was gassing Jews. I found that particularly interesting. As well, Stalin, 1939. 2019, Greta Thunberg. Of course, I posted a cover of Time and my little association, and that was pretty funny because one of my oldest customers in hemp when I was back in the day, well, funny enough, he friended me a couple of weeks ago, or about a month ago, and he had interjected himself in a number of conversations, and he was rather condescending a few times. But I thought, again, maybe he'll learn. Maybe we can teach him something. And, we've talked about investment in the truth, and, so many people are invested in this sustainable picture that they haven't looked beyond the document of Agenda 2030, Agenda 21. This has been a stage deal. If I had understood in 2005 what this whole sustainable development thing really meant, had I actually dug as deep as I needed to, I would have never promoted it. I wouldn't have touched it. My point is, in 2005, I was the fringe of information. We were just starting to talk about all this on a global level. And prior to that, I was involved in hemp, so, sustainable, talking that message, from 1996 when I started my hemp store. But it's taken a long time for all of this to catch on. And I haven't seen a lot of people really catching on. For example, Organic Lifestyles magazine published it for 5 years. I was the first national magazine to go on forced stewardship certified paper. And funny enough, one of the last. I often look for the symbol on publications, and it's funny because I seldom find it. It's very rare. FSC paper has been out forever. It's meant to be a more sustainable option, particularly in publishing. Yet not one of my competitors at the time ever jumped on board. Why, you ask? The cost. My choice to do FSC paper meant Martine didn't get paid. That's how committed I was to the truth. It was funny in the experience because a lot of people expected that we made these changes, but seemingly didn't expect anyone else to. The little guy, the independent, no financing. I sold advertising space, but at the time in my competing publications, one page was going for $7,500. It was a lot of money. The next, there was the first magazine, which was Alive, then there was Vista, and I came in under the radar, and not one of them ever changed. I always wondered why it was an expectation of small business to actually push this forward and have to make those financial commitments when the big guys never do it, ever. It's interesting. It's like when, I had my packaging in my business, and we were exploring, at the beginning, we were exploring packaging options. We had hemp oil, and we needed a plastic bottle. And of course, we didn't want to use plastic, but glass was actually more expensive to ship. There's all these things you learn throughout it. So, you might be robbing Peter to pay Paul here, but when you get back, the plastic is cheaper, but it costs less to ship because it doesn't weigh so much. You also don't incur breakage and all these other, crazy things that can go wrong. But the glass, again, costs more to ship. So you're paying more for the bottle and paying more for the shipping. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. My last promotion. We banned plastic straws. But here we are, I'm giving away a pack of 3 aluminum straws with a brush if you buy protein powder. Need more stuff? When you bought 2 protein powders, you got a blender. This is what's going on. I don't see the corporations making the change. And in fact, everything is being shifted to corporate. The small guy, pressured by those niche markets to make these expensive changes that are going to make them have to incur financing and greater reliance on other sources because it's difficult. In fact, when I sold my company, I was in Toronto, and the magazine had died, and I couldn't afford to, bail it anymore. My advertisers couldn't afford to pay more. And I really didn't want to water down my message for the big guys, so I didn't. When I worked for a company in Toronto, All in Green Packaging. Now, this girl had started the business. She was the first one in, and I really liked her. Her and I got along quite well. And I went in to fill in for a mat leave. And what was interesting was all the small companies, the coffee shops. It was really hip back then. Like, this is 2010. And you weren't really a hip coffee shop unless you had the proper cups. It was pretty trendy. And it's more than a trend today, especially there. Not here where I live at all. In fact, I find we're going back in time. But the small independents that all wanted to do it and were game for it, the problem was they had to charge the same for the coffee as everybody else. And the packaging cost them that much more. I can remember understanding what they were going through because every time they would call to make an order, the small guys, I could never give them credit. And I was amazed because I was a small business person and everybody got credit. These people didn't because they just didn't pay the bills. They couldn't. It was difficult. a lot of the institutions did grab on. That was a good thing. In the universities, I could see across the country, we covered a lot of it. But then at the same time, I was thinking to myself, but why aren't they just using dishes in the cafeteria? That would be actually environmental. Our lives are going to change. And we're seeing the results of these bans and sweeping regulations. We're seeing in places like Boston where now you can't install gas. It's outlawed. California, it's cropping up. It's happening here, there, here, there. Nobody's connecting the dots. The power grid's getting switched out. And we're all going electric. The problem is, in Europe, a lot of people can't afford that electric. This has become a serious problem. And the biggest problem about it is we're not getting the truth about what's going on out there. The message is being piped in everywhere. The smart cities that all look like they have their own individual plan, that they're actually coming up with it, but in fact they've been given a blueprint. This is UN Sustainable Development, and we have globalism happening right in our backyards. I just saw the other night, of course I'm in Regina, Saskatchewan, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on? I was just about afraid to look, and I did, and I saw a job posting. We're not a smart city yet, but there was a job posting for someone to fill the position to get that ball rolling. So we know we still have some time here. But cities like Vancouver and Toronto, the big centers, Boston, LA, they're all on track. And these smart cities are all over, everywhere. I live in a house here in Regina, and the reason I live here is because, well, it was cheap. I can't afford to have this lifestyle in Toronto. Never. Few people can. When I would have immigrants in my house, which was interesting, especially from India, the first thing I would say to them would be, you can have a house here. You don't have to live in a box. Because they're more used to that. But for us, we have space here. We only have 1 million people in our province, the size of Texas. So we are afforded more luxury. And of course, it's cold here. So years ago when I got here, everybody was leaving. So house prices were super low. That's changed, but they're still pretty low comparatively. Lives are going to change. And it's happening incrementally, in bits and pieces. And what we need to do is stand back and look at the big picture and look at the new initiatives that are happening in our towns. I want to arrange a speaking tour coming up in the end of January, starting February. Just trying to get my schedule straight. You also have to think, being here in Saskatchewan and being on the road can be difficult in the winter. But I'm a road warrior. I really want to get a speaking tour together to address the many issues that go along with Agenda 2030. And I'm actually going to be reading that on my 3-week vacation in Ecuador. That's my little project. We need to start talking and communicating. And I love the social media. It's awesome. But I think we post, but we're not doing it. We're not doing anything. We are doing a lot, don't get me wrong. We are doing a ton. by informing people. But I've always worked well one-on-one and with groups, and that's what I intend to do after the holidays. We need to understand what's happening here, and all too many people do not. Globalism is coming to Canada, United States, every country in the world, and we need to get ready and decide if this is what we truly want. I don't believe it is. I know it's not for me. If you're interested in hosting or getting a group together in your city, your community, your group of women, your group of concerned citizens. I would also like to bring in the geoengineering, because this is truly part of this whole Agenda 2030. Geoengineer, we're going to talk about it all, because all these things have a piece in this giant puzzle. The problem is we don't know what the puzzle is, because the picture that's on the box is wrong. We need to create the real picture and make sure it gets out to as many people as possible. If you had dreams of that summer cabin, that's not on with this. You think you're going to have a hobby farm? That's not going to happen. I know it sounds extreme, and I know it sounds like it couldn't be, but we're watching it right before our very eyes. Private message me if you are interested in putting something together, and we can start hashing ideas. Let's make this happen, because there's no turning back after this. Something to ponder, and have a fabulous day. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would love if you would do that. Martine Carlina. Thanks so much. Have a fabulous day.